Hello everyone, my name is Faz from Nintendo Players UK and I have been given a second honor this week. I didn't think that was going to happen. I am now sitting down with the voice actress of Urbosa and Riju, Elizabeth Maxwell. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I was going to say cheerio, and then I stopped myself, and then I said it anyways.
It's fine. I think us UK folk will appreciate that. So, how has your year been so far?
Oh man, it's been wonderful. It's been really busy, and I have been really lucky to work on some both super professionally and personally satisfying projects this last year. So I really can't complain.
Is there anything in particular of note you want to talk about right now?
Oh gosh. Well, it was pretty cool. I got to work on, obviously, Nintendo's Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Persona 5, which were both, pretty popular and like critically acclaimed games this last year. And the fan reception and fan reaction to that has just been really lovely. And those were the two main things that come to mind for me. Lots of other projects too, but those are the two main ones that I've been most proud of.
Well, to be fair, you're right. They are both pretty critically acclaimed, so it must have been a bit of a arduous task picking between whose side do you go on. Obviously, we know the best side, but you know. Uh,
Indeed.
all right, so we'll get into the questions. Last week, I got to, or at least the last interview, whenever this video comes out, I got to speak with the other three champions, and I will be going through the questions again, considering when this interview takes place, it was quite short. It was quite close. We just got this out of the way, so we do apologize if there's questions you've heard before, but we hope you still appreciate the interview nonetheless. So the first question I need to ask is, how often do you get to interact with the other voice actors, and have you actually got to meet them in real life?
I believe I have gotten to meet everybody in real life at this point. I did get the pleasure of running into Joe, Amelia, and Sean. Usually, like as one of our sessions was ending, the other would be coming in. So I've gotten to chat with them a little bit. Um, by far, the one I've actually become closest with, though, is Patricia Somerset. She's the voice of Zelda, and her and I have actually become pretty good friends. And we travel a lot together. We go to a lot of conventions together, and she is actually crashing at my place this week for South by Southwest.
Woo!
So roomy for a couple days.
Oh well, let her know we are thinking about her, and we are thankful for her voicing of Zelda, and we hope to see her on here sometime. Since it's been,
I
is it gone? Sorry.
pass on both of those sentiments.
One day, one day. Where did voice acting start for you then? Since you've looking at your filmography and your voicing, you've done quite a lot.
It's funny. I didn't actually start pursuing voice acting until about 5 years ago, which I guess is only funny to me because I've wanted to be an actor my entire life. Like ever since I was 5 years old, that was what I figured out I wanted to do, and went through my whole adolescence with that goal in mind. Got a BFA in theater, lived in LA for 5 years, and pursued on camera work, which I'm still doing. But when I moved to Austin from LA, I knew that the market was going to be somewhat smaller and was trying to think of like other ways to, get income and exercise my creativity. And a couple of friends of mine who work in the video game industry, were kind of like, well, you have a good voice, you have an understanding of the genres because, I watch a lot of anime, I play a lot of video games. And I guess after hearing that enough times, it was kind of like, why haven't I thought of doing this before? And that began my journey. And I'm so glad for it because I can't imagine my life without voice acting now at all.
Well, I'm glad you're there because you get to voice Urbosa and Riju and Winter, which we'll get to soon enough. So it's like you said, you said it yourself that you're a big fan of anime and video games. So when
Hmm.
you when you got to when the Legend of Zelda, with Legend of Zelda being the very first game to release on a Nintendo Switch, did you feel any sort of pressure on this title? Because the very first trailer that came out for it was with where we heard from the champions was probably late 2016, I think it is. So,
Mm-hmm.
what was that? What was that like for you? Did you feel pressure, or was it different types of things that you were thinking about at the time?
No, for sure. I mean, whenever you work on something that you already know ahead of time is going to be to have a lot of attention on it, there's obviously a huge amount of pressure. I feel like I was kind of primed for it because I stepped into the shoes of Mary Elizabeth McGlynn to voice the younger version of Modoko Kusanagi for the Ghost in the Shell
Mm-hmm.
franchise. And that was really nerve wracking because she's like a goddess among voice actresses. And, you know, Major is one of the, most well known anime characters of all time, I would argue.
Yeah.
Um, Thankfully, I didn't feel as much pressure when we were actually recording. It was easy to kind of get lost in the job and in the joy and the work of it. Um, but definitely I was like biting my fingernails like leading up to the release and the first couple of days of the release, um, waiting to see like what the kind of like general fan reaction was to the voice acting.
Personally, I loved Urbosa in this. Just everything about her voice, even like some of her actions we'll get into later. But for me personally, I really liked Urbosa. I think
Thank
I
you.
think Urbosa is my favorite champion, but it's only because of one scene. We'll get to those sort of we'll get to that question when it comes up. But I am getting ahead of myself. I do apologize.
It's all good.
Thank you. When taking on the role, what mindset did you take for your character, for Urbosa in this
Uh,
case?
well, it's interesting because, I do play a lot of badass women characters. So the warrior aspect of her was not unfamiliar
Hmm.
for me. Like I could kind of play that sort of role, half asleep. The maternal aspect of her personality was a little bit more of a challenge for me because I'm the youngest one in my family. I don't have children. I don't have, I'm not really super close to anyone that has children. And I was definitely kind of like, ooh, how am I going to make this relationship believable? Like, where am I going to like pull these emotions from? And there was a moment before we filmed the scene on Bah Naboris where Zelda's kind of like fallen asleep, in my lap, and I'm talking to Link about, taking, care of her and stuff. Um, where the director, Jamie, was like, Elizabeth, just imagine that Patricia is your cat. And I was like, oh,
Oh wow!
I get
Oh my god,
it.
that was actually the scene. That was the scene I was thinking
So,
about.
yep, yep. So in that scene, I am talking to my cat.
Wow. So what we've learned today is Patricia is a cat. Should I mention this to her?
I have told this story in front of her, and I think that she was equal parts like amused and like dismayed.
Wow. Oh my god, that's wow. It's actually difficult to find a good segue to this, but I'm just gonna ask it anyway. Um, did you face any challenges with your particular character? I would assume that there would be more challenges playing Riju, because you said it yourself. You're used to playing badass characters. So, were there any challenges playing either Urbosa or Riju?
You know, not so much with Riju, surprisingly, because we didn't record her until after we were pretty much finished with Urbosa, and so she was easy to kind of slip into. Like I already had like I knew who her ancestors was. I knew who her people were, and I don't know. She was actually not that difficult to figure out for me. I think with Urbosa, probably the greatest challenge that we dealt with was that when you voice kind of confident, deeper voiced female characters, it's very easy to kind of slip into sounding sexy without even meaning to.
Yeah.
And they definitely did not want Urbosa to go that way. They wanted her to, be more like the tough maternal prankster. And so that was the one thing I feel like that I kind of had to constantly keep an eye on and check in with the director about was, just making sure that it wasn't straying into sexy town.
Okay. Well, I thought it came across that way. It just seemed more like I would love to hang out with Urbosa all the time, personally. I think she...
Me too.
I just hope she doesn't use her lightning on me. That would be... it would end up... I think we'd end up going into anime territory if she did. So, what was the transition like going from the main game to the DLC, if I may ask, in terms of performance?
Well, we had a different director, so that always changes things just a little bit, because, each director brings their own interpretation and style to the session. And, but, with something like the DLC where the character is already pretty well established, there wasn't a ton. It was just pretty cool getting to, like, see different, aspects of Urbosa's character and details of her background and her storyline come out. And really getting to explore more of that, the bittersweet, feelings of like pride and regret of, missing Zelda's mother and, trying to do right by Zelda and being really proud of her, but missing her. And, all of those kind of like complex, conflicting emotions that were going on was really sometimes tough, but a really beautiful thing to kind of try and weave together. Yeah.
The concept of Zelda's mother did not come up to me there, so that's interesting to hear.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if that was actually something that may have stayed in the session and that we just talked about it. I don't know if it was ever verbalized, but we definitely talked about, kind of like adding nuance and layers onto my character that, that it was very likely that Urbosa and Zelda's mother, the queen, were good friends,
Yeah.
With Urbosa being, I mean, I know she's not the, only female champion.
Yes.
But, one of the female champions, she's been there by, the leaders of Hyrule's side for a very long time. So yeah, we definitely talked a bit about the kind of added emotional layer of Urbosa also having a relationship with Zelda's mom and not just Zelda.
So with that being said, what were your favorite lines in the game, particularly for Urbosa?
Oh gosh.
Unless you're going to say the entire thing, which is kind of, it's cheating, but it counts.
I don't know. It's funny because I do get asked this question a lot at conventions with many things that I'm in. And very rarely do very specific lines stick out. That scene on Bah Naboris that you mentioned was your favorite was probably also overall my favorite to record.
Yes.
Because it incorporated a little bit of everything. It was like she was serious, she was emotional, she was funny. So you got to see like all aspects of her personality in one scene. Yeah. But I particularly liked the very end of the scene where I grant Link Urbosa's Fury. We had a lot of fun playing around with like the implication of her saying like, take good care of the princess and take good care of Hyrule too.
Yeah.
Like the kind of like many different like things that I could be insinuating with that line and like trying to like fit them all in there.
No, I can understand. The implications are real here.
Yeah.
So you might have heard of a game called Super Smash Brothers, correct?
I have. I've played it recreationally.
So it recently got announced in a Nintendo Direct. Would you like to see your character appear?
Heck yes! Absolutely. I think Urbosa would be a fantastic addition to the Smash Brothers, playable characters options. I mean, I know Link usually gets the spotlight, but I think that all of the champions would be a great addition.
For anyone who might be listening to this in retrospect, Sean Chiplock, who voices Rivali, was so excited because I don't. Obviously, you weren't there for the main recording, but he mentioned on his Twitter that if Rivali becomes an assist, he will give out copies of Smash Brothers. That's how hyped he was, and he got to the point where if Rivali becomes playable, he was going to give away a Switch. So, yeah, that's a thing. So, you're not going to do something similar, are you?
I mean, it hadn't occurred to me. Maybe I'll think about it.
All right. Thank you for answering my particular questions. We'll get into the fan questions now. We'll see how many we can finish in the time we have. But first question is from Neve. She's a very big Zelda fan. She's a cosplayer as well. She asks, who is your favorite character and why? When I asked this to the other champions, it was opened up to anyone, any character, but who is your favorite character in the Zelda series? And then tell me who's your favorite character in general, if that is something you'd like to do.
Oh gosh. Well, I know we kind of talked about this. Fair disclosure. I did not come from a Nintendo family. I came from a family that was like firmly like Sega Genesis, Sega Dreamcast. Oh my God, what were we thinking?
No, it's fine. I was there too. It's fine.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of experience with the other Zelda games, so I couldn't say.
Oh, not in Zelda, in series, just Breath of the Wild. You can be specific.
Oh, in Breath of the Wild.
Yes, because you would have had more interaction with the characters in that, particularly.
I mean, I know that it's like super cliche to say my own character, but I really did. I mean, I usually find ways to like every character that I voice, but I don't always love every character that I voice. And I loved Urbosa. Like, she was such a joy to play, and like the specifics of her character, like the Gerudo as a tribe as a whole, her as a woman, like everything about her, I just really jived on. And the fact that she was like this strong, sexy, confident, capable woman just really appealed to me. So sorry, but not to, humble brag about my own character, but it's the truth.
It's fine. It counts. It's to me. No, it's fine. Next question. Richard Brown asks, "What is your?" Sorry, go on.
My favorite character in general.
Oh, if you want to, yeah, go for it. I do apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I mean, this isn't a very well thought out answer, and I'm sure if you gave me like 10 minutes to think about it, I might come up with several others. But I've always been a huge Chrono Trigger fan, and Luca was always one of my favorite characters because I was like a very kind of nerdy, brainy academic kid growing up. Yeah. And Luca is the first character that I remember seeing in a video game that was like brainy and badass and cool. And I was just like, oh, I want to be her. She's me. So she's always been one of my favorites too.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I don't know what to add to that, to be fair. I really don't, because we all like our own. All nerdy characters are badass in their own right. Let's be honest. With that being said, Richard Brown asks, "What is your favorite part of Zelda that you weren't directly involved with?" You probably already said this, but with the Patricia memory. But was there any others?
Well, I haven't gotten very far into the game yet, so Boop boop a doo.
It doesn't have to necessarily be with the game. It could be something that was in response to the game. So, for example, a fan interaction or something you may have been given, or just a memory in the booth if that was something that you were interested in. It does not have to.
Ah, gotcha. Well, one of my favorite memories that I can think of off the top of my head is that a really lovely young woman contacted me on Twitter, and she basically wrote me this amazing message telling me about how she had always had a lower voice for a female,
Yeah.
and that she'd always been teased for it and had felt kind of like embarrassed about it, and that playing Breath of the Wild and hearing Urbosa made her start to think differently about her own voice, and made her realize that, like, maybe all these people who were making fun of her weren't right, and maybe having, you know, a lower voice could be awesome and cool and beautiful. And that, like, made my day. That's like one of the best fan messages I've ever received.
Well, I'm glad that the performance has empowered another, and that's such a sweet memory.
Yeah.
If there's any more like that, if you happen to be listening and you do happen to have it, do send it her way. She deserves it.
Aww.
With that being said, next question is from Imran Nala from Bolton. If there was one thing they could change about the character in terms of designs, in terms of what they'd look like, what would it be? Would you give him a different color? Would you give him a weapon, or would you add something personal to it for Urbosa or Riju?
The only thing I feel like that I would change is maybe take away the heels. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love wearing a good pair of high heels. They make your legs look amazing. But I've always thought that it's a little silly that so many video game characters and anime characters run around fighting in heels. Like, it's just not realistic. And it's really painful in real life.
She manages to do this in the desert, though. So her control must be on point.
I know, right? It's no wonder she has such muscular calves. So yeah, I think that would maybe be the only thing that I would change. Other than that, I love all the character designs. I think they're pretty damn perfect. And I love that. I mean, this is such like a silly, superficial thing, but it's like, I love that I have red hair and Urbosa has red hair. I would never change that.
Yes. Redheads for the win. With that being said, Nai Nakai asks, did you do more takes of the voice clips from the champion's powers than you did for any other part, as they are repeated so often in the game?
I don't honestly remember.
So, the line Urbosa's Fury is ready. Because you shout that in between the game. It's just because it happens so often, at least for the fans to hear when they're playing, to use their ability. We were just wondering if there was more, if you had said it more than once, if you had recorded it more than one time.
We almost record everything, or almost always record everything more than once. They usually, particularly like on in-game lines like that, not ones that are part of the cutscene, but standalone in-game lines, we almost always record at least 3, sometimes more. I to be perfectly honest, I don't remember how many we recorded for Urbosa's Fury is Ready, but I don't remember like harping on it a lot. Like, I feel like it was just kind of treated like any other line, and we recorded the same number of variations. So.
And this is the final fan question. So this is actually from 2 people, because one of them both of them are very big Ruby fans. Flori, the little sister, says hi, by the way.
Hello.
And Brian E. Baxter from Huddersfield asks, when you voice different performances each day, how do you mentally switch between each character? She says, I have a cup of tea because it's the Yorkshire thing to do.
That's such a good question and such a good idea. I love tea. I love like the ritual of tea and how it kind of forces you to like take a break. Because I don't smoke, so it's like, I don't know, tea or coffee is like my cigarette break.
You'll love England then.
Oh man, I've been to London a couple of times and I always do high tea every time I go. Oh, so amazing. But that's honestly a fantastic question, and every voice actor handles it differently. But I have a little secret trick that, well, not secret, but I have a trick that I came up with that works really well for myself, where I will come up with one or two lines that to me capture the essence of the character, whether it's my favorite line to say or whether it's something that just kind of like in that line, it tells you everything you need to know about that character. And I kind of like really grind that into like my body and my brain. And then when I need to like short circuit my brain into that character, just saying that line will immediately give me both the physical vocal performance as well as like the inner life of the character. And that for me is the quickest way to make that switch. The secret part is that I won't ever tell anybody what the lines are for each character because those are very like private and like intimate for me. But the tool itself is not secret.
Well, to be fair, that is an amazing tool to use, and maybe one day we'll catch you off guard and we'll hear it, and we'll then be able to become you. No, not really. But all right. Final question, and I always ask this at the end when it comes to voice actors. What do you feel is the most important thing for a voice actor to be, as you will be the generation, or at least you will be inspiring new people who would want to get into voice acting? What do you think is the most important thing to remember?
Gosh. You mean like if for people that are wanting to like pursue it themselves, or about like the industry in general, or
whatever you feel is the most important thing. If you could tell yourself 5 years ago what you think the most important thing to do with voice acting is, what do you reckon you should know?
To like don't prescribe to conventional wisdom. I think, and I mean, this is, I guess, kind of like about life in general and not just voice acting. But I think a lot of the times in life when we're trying to pursue a goal, we get tripped up in like doing it the right way, or what's the next step, or I've got to do A, B, and C before I can do E, F, and G. And I'm kind of like, if you have a passion or you want something, just go for it and be creative and be fearless. And don't be afraid to like break the rules a little or go for the gold instead of like grinding out, the little baby steps first. I feel like part of the reason why I was able to kind of achieve some of the things that I did in voiceover in a fairly short period of time for the industry was because I didn't know a lot about it when I was starting out. And so I didn't know like what the box quote unquote was or what the rules were. And so I just made up my own rules and like stepped outside of the box without even realizing it. So yeah, I mean, that wasn't very concise.
It's fine. No, it's important to hear. And I always ask this to every single voice actor. So everyone comes up with different things. So so it's fine if it's unconventional, as you've said. And yes, it may be a little bit long-winded, but it's fine. It's your way, and it's your advice to give. So I appreciate that, and I hope the fans listening will also appreciate that too. And I'm sure they do. With that being said, thank you very much for taking part in my little sit-down talk thing. And if people have more questions, where can they find you?
I recommend finding me on Twitter. My handle is about Elizabeth M, or Instagram. On there, my handle is Elizabeth Maxwell. Those are the two social medias that I use the most often.
All right. Hopefully we can have you again sometime. Maybe if the champions do get announced for Smash Brothers, or maybe later this year if Winter gets announced for Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle. But in the meantime, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. It was delightful. I appreciate it. Thanks to everybody listening.
For everyone else listening, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We also have a Discord channel. We've actually got a Twitch channel as well. You can find your local Nintendo groups using www.nintendoplayers.uk. And hope to see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.